It's 1886 and our world is hit by a volcanic winter, causing temperatures to drop far below zero. You are tasked to lead the remnant of mankind in this cold struggle by building a city around a generator so that mankind can survive this disaster. Now, am I the only one that thinks we're a little bit overreacting? A little bit of snow and some cold weather, it's not that bad. It's not like mankind will go completely insane by this. Oh boy, that could have gone a lot better. Well, I guess some people do go insane by snow. So now it comes to us to lead mankind through this struggle. Look at the bright side. It can't get any worse than this. I'll just put on a thick sweater and turn off the heater, because it's going to get cold. Frostpunk lands in a fine middle ground of city builder, survival and management game. At the start you only have the generator, some resources and a remnant of mankind that forms your workforce. The generator is the center of your city as it's your main heat source and key to mankind's survival in this harsh, cold weather. It's your task to keep all citizens alive. You'll be doing this by giving jobs to your workforce. These jobs can be gathering resources, provide healthcare or do research. However, your workforce is divided into two groups, workers and engineers. Both groups can work in most buildings, but things like a workshop or a hunting lodge are specific for one of the two. You can even send out scouts to find resources in the land around your city. However, the trade-off is a little bit tricky, as you lose workers in your city and it takes a lot of time. But finding a large amount of resources or even more survivors will boost your city's progress immensely. That is, if they come back from the wasteland. However, the most important thing is heat. Not only to keep your citizens alive, it also keeps your city functioning properly. Efficiency, discontent and chance of illness are connected to the temperature levels in houses or work buildings. Some buildings will not even operate at all if they aren't heated properly. Therefore, having them close to the generator is a must. However, Frostpunk doesn't allow you to just pile up everything near a generator. You have to build in a circle around the generator, basically forcing you to make some rough choices early on. You might have to build houses further away from the generator, so that you can build a more important building closer to the heat source. But further from the generator means that houses are less heated. Therefore, a chance of illness becomes bigger. This in turn will anger the people and demand you to find a way to heat their homes properly, or discontent will rise among the people in your city. This is where choices shape your city in Frostpunk. To know how your citizens are doing, you got the discontent and hope bar. Discontent speaks by itself. When the living conditions are terrible, people will be unhappy. You can try to lower discontent by building certain buildings or by doing random requests for your citizens. Though, if you fill those requests, discontent will rise greatly. It's therefore common that the discontent bar goes up and down fast in a short amount of time. It's key to manage discontent carefully, because if the bar fills up completely, you will only have 2 in-game days to lower discontent to a certain level. Otherwise, you will lose the game. Then there is also the hope bar. It's mostly affected by events that happen randomly in your city. Sometimes you have choices in these events, but sometimes things just happen. You can, however, enforce new laws that will unlock buildings or skills that will make people hopeful again. But this comes with a price as well. For example, you can enact a law that forces children to work. This gives you a large boost to your workforce, but forced child labor is disliked by your citizens, which makes them lose hope. But the first time choosing such laws is definitely rough. You struggle with your own morals as you try to be a fair leader, but also trying to keep everybody alive and happy. However, when you play multiple playthroughs, these choices become easier. The main issue with this system is that there is a clear better choice in most cases. And on top of that, the effects aren't as severe as they seem to be. This makes your choices feel a bit pointless. Then there is a second path in the law system. The moment to choose which path you will take has a nice build up in the main story. The choice itself is basically the question, How do I want to control and rule over my citizens? Your options: order or faith. Both sides will unlock new buildings and skills, but this is where I got disappointed. I expected that the gameplay would get a twist and that both sides would have a different kind of twist. But the twist that comes into the gameplay is the same for both sides. When you pick order, you can build guard towers and prisons to control your citizens with an iron fist. While with faith, you build churches and cathedrals to spread faith and to basically brainwash your citizens to see you as their great savior and leader. Yes, they seem different, but up close, they really aren't. The buildings and skill do basically the same thing, but have different names, which is such a shame. I also would have liked to see a third option that is like the grey area combining the two of them. Or a completely insane one that's more of a gimmick to pick. I mean, mankind loves to go insane in these apocalyptic seeds. Why not use that? Even though order and faith are not really different from each other on paper in terms of effects, the buildings themselves give a clear different vibe to your city. There is, however, a bit of a balancing issue between the two options, which isn't noticeable until you dive deeper into the game outside of the main story. The main balancing issue is that order gives you a building at the start that needs workers to function. While this is not the case for the first faith building, yet both buildings have the same effect. The same issue happens again further down the road, giving order another disadvantage. You can still pick order if you prefer the looks or you want the extra difficulty. But for me, knowing that faith would bring the same effects but with less of a struggle pushed me to pick faith over order in many cases. I really like how everything in the game looks, but there isn't as much steampunk as I hoped there would be. The buildings that have steampunk theming are amazingly detailed. The roads, factories and mechs all look so nice and fit the theme perfectly. These buildings come to life with these detailed yet simple animations. I especially love the animation when a mech is completed and assembled. The mechs themselves are very detailed and have these fun, quirky yet very detailed animations, though they can be a bit buggy from time to time. Still, building your first mech is probably one of the biggest and most noticeable leaps of progress for your city, as it can do all the work of one building non-stop. Once you assign it to a building, it will connect itself to that building by sitting on top of it, or in some cases hang itself on the side of it. It's a really nice added detail that every building has a different animation for these mechs. But as I mentioned before, not everywhere the steampunk theming hits its mark. Everything progresses and slowly embraces the steampunk theming, yet some buildings keep looking like wooden shacks. At the start of the game, this makes all sense, but late game, this becomes very noticeable. I would have liked to see buildings change more as you unlock more upgrades for them. Overall, the upgrade system is simple and works fine, but in my opinion it would have been much better and more impactful if you had to choose between two upgrades for buildings individually. These of course would come with their own pros and cons, but would add a nice layer of difficulty. I already mentioned the mechs you can build. However, it's a shame that there is only one type. It would be cool if you can make a big steam vehicle or a zeppelin. Your scouts could use those to explore the cold wasteland faster and more efficient. The game has so many possibilities and there's definitely room to add more. Since release there have been free updates, not only bug fixes but also new content. Something small and simple as camera mode, but also scenarios, and the most noteworthy thing among all the updates, the endless mode. Endless mode is divided into two forms, creative and endurance. Creative is not special in terms of creativity. For me it felt more like discovering the game, with barely any difficulty. You get a few extra buildings, but it's not enough to customize your city differently from a normal playthrough. But what creativity mode lacks, endurance mode makes up for it. After you completed the main story scenario and got a good grip over the game, you should try endurance mode. It's harder, more punishing and more stressful, but in a good way. It feels great when you manage to pull through a rough situation where you just avoided total death. Yet, there will come a point in these playthroughs where your attack gets above the difficulty curve. At that point I'd rather start a new playthrough than continuing. However, there are many challenges before you get to that point. And there is no guarantee you will even make it to that point. The biggest surprise for me was the atmosphere. Almost every event comes with pictures. They have these dark colors that are in contrast with the snow, which makes them look stunning. This comes back in the game itself as well, as buildings have a similar contrast effect with the snow. And then there's the music. As you progress in the game, it becomes more difficult and the music seems to follow that difficulty growth by slowly becoming more tense. The build-up stays consistent throughout the whole playthrough, up until you reach the final moments where it goes all out. I talked about certain things becoming easier or effects fading in later playthroughs, but this is not the case for the atmosphere. It keeps hitting the marks, and even though I became more comfortable in the game, I was still on the edge mainly because of the atmosphere. The experience Frostpunk offers is unique and solid, especially in the first few playthroughs. And I'm sure in the near future I will replay this game and again be completely amazed by it. However, there is still untouched potential, so I hope there's more to come for the game. In the end, Frostpunk is amazing. And if you like what you have seen and heard in this video, you should definitely check it out, because it's worth it. And that concludes my review of Frostpunk. But what did you think of the game? Let me know down below. Thank you very much for watching, and if you liked this video, leave a like and consider subscribing. With all that being said, I wish you a good day, and until next time.